When I walked in that class and saw my first piece of pottery being thrown, it was a defining moment for me. I still go back in shock that somebody could take and make a gesture with their hands and it went 360 degrees around, like a dance, like a beautiful phrase somebody sings, or like a sculptor or a poet. But putting your hand and working with this material and then went 360 degrees around, that was it.
When people think of clay, they think of that it comes in a bag, and you get it at a store, and that's it. You know, it's like if you ask a child, where does milk come from? Well, it comes from a carton. If you told them it comes from a cow, they wouldn't believe you. Some of them anyway. But the whole idea of mud, that's literally what clay is. It's mined from the soil.
You know, it is kind of interesting, the notion of mud as being sort of this anonymous thing. Every place has mud, you know, and so that, I guess, in a certain way, that could speak to sort of a community, a vast community of clay workers.
Clay is a material that we walk on all the time. It's right under our feet. It's the most common, probably, art material that exists. It's not mud. I mean, mud relates to I think, topsoil that's mixed with water, and if you squeeze mud, you get dirty, but it doesn't hold a shape. But clay is really what's below the topsoil.
You know, most clay deposits are extremely ancient. And when I say extremely ancient, I mean most of them were deposited during the Pangea, when all the Earth's mass was one single unit. And so there's clay all over the world. And people all over the world use clay, and the very first signs of human civilization we find are little things made out of clay or broken clay objects. And what you're going to see today is a continuation of that spirit, that philosophy, and that approach of making things with clay that reflect what people are, what their culture is, what they need, and what they do. This is a teapot, and what you have to realize is this little stone right here is the lid to the teapot. And if you pick it up and look, you can see right there is the spout. And if you look sideways, here's the handle to this teapot. And I guarantee you, if you actually wanted to brew tea in this pot, you could put water in there and you could make it work, because it really is a container.
Clay in general, it's just, it's such an enormous material in terms of its potential. It can do so many different things.
Well, I've constructed, I guess, 4 sculptures out of bricks and flue liners. That's basically what they are, and I've glazed them and then just stacked them up dry. There's nothing holding them together initially, and then I strap them up. In some ways, it's out of the tradition of the ready-made, Marcel Duchamp and the ready-made. To me, a regularly fired brick, a pre-made brick is fine as far as ceramics goes. There's a lot of potential for each individual unit.
I sort of have a love-hate relationship with it too. I mean, sometimes it's so controllable and it does exactly what you want it to do, then it does the exact opposite of what you want it to do. And there's also a lot of element of chance in it. I mean, I broke a piece today when I was installing it, but that's sort of the game that, you know, with clay, you run that risk. Once you realize that, you know, nothing's precious, that's a good point in your relationship with clay.
There's really been a revolution in the way people work with ceramics. And when you look at this exhibit, there's still something about all of the sculpture in this show that still relates back to, I believe, the basic vessel form. I think everything in this exhibit is hollow. And making something hollow is kind of a form, a particular process for working with clay, as I've done with this piece that I'm just sitting here squeezing.
You know, I have to admit that I'm, like so many other people who worked with porcelain, is just very seduced by the material. I mean, it's this beautiful, white, pure substance that is, I mean, color shows up so brilliantly with porcelain. edges can be defined so well with porcelain. And then, a big part of it is its translucency. So, light passes through the clay and it changes the color of the glaze. And that, to me, is magic. That's the ring of porcelain. It's quite beautiful.
You'll hear potters say, "I know my pots." And it's true, certain forms you throw, you get to know them. Like one historian would say, like a lover. She would say, "This is how you do it." You get to know it so well. When you focus on the wheel, it's just you and the material. It's a very intimate act.
What I like so much about the wheel is it's such a simple tool. And particularly the type of wheel that I do most of my throwing on is a treadle wheel. So there's a real directness to the way in which the mechanics of it and the way in which a pot is formed. And so that's something to me that is very attractive. And that directness really affects the way in which the form evolves. And it's a very comprehensible way to make form. And so as a tool, it's just the right pace for my thinking.
You can't get more basic than taking a ball of clay and working with it and feeling it. And I tell students to close their eyes and just feel the clay. It's a way to get in touch with the thickness and so forth.
I believe that this process of commitment to a material, discipline, focusing, is so important, and it really tells us who we are.
I just consider it to be a very long-term conversation.